actually going to get started now with behind the scenes. So tonight we're going to talk to our first designer in residence recipient, Jared Yazzie. And Jared is the owner of OXDX Clothing. He's a self-taught graphic designer. Actually, I'm going to read you his bio. It's pretty impressive. Jared Yazzie was the Arizona Apparel Foundation 2017 designer in residence recipient. He started OXDX Clothing in 2009 from his University of Arizona dorm room with the hopes to fill a gap in representation for Native people. Jared is Diné, is that how you say it? Diné Navajo, and is a self-taught graphic designer and screen printer. His graphic tees have sold around the world, and after 10 years in business, OXDX has made it to the walls of the Smithsonian NMAI Museum, to articles in Vogue, WWD, the Huffington Post, High Snobiety, and collaborations with major players like the Hundreds, Eighth Generation, and Jamie Okuma. So we're super excited to hear Jared's story tonight. Let's give him a big hand. So I always want to know where did it all start? You know, that's the first question. Like, how come you are who you are today? So what was your inspiration and background? Tell us about your childhood.
Oh, childhood.
Let's lay you on a couch.
Jared Yazzie. I'm originally from Tisiacan, Arizona. That's translated to Holbrook, Arizona. So I've been designing for about 10 years. I listed some inspiration here, the photos behind me. These are all my family members. You can see my mom in the middle. She's holding my oldest brother, who's actually sitting in the stands over here. Aww. So that's him when he was little. That's my mom when she graduated. My dad's mom is up on the top left. Our great-grandpa is on the bottom left. My grandpa's up on the top right. My whole mom's side of the family is on the bottom right. So this is a very fashionable group of individuals. It's sort of the vibe I had when I was growing up. So it's really seamless with my grandpa. You can see him just chilling there. He's really cool. And then my grandma on the top left is one of the toughest ladies I know. I always described, she's very caring, really interactive with her grandchildren, but I always saw her with like butchering or something. She'd always have a blade in her hand. Wow. She would be, you know, when you butcher, these days we have a little saw to break through bones and stuff, but she would do it with her hands. I've seen her mix coals of the fire with her hands before as well. So if the fire's going down, she'll reach in and she'll stir back up. Oh my God. Which is all like, you think as a little kid that it's not a big deal until she's cooking bread and then she puts it straight into your hands and you like almost drop it because it's so hot. But that's how she used to cook. She just, so she was a really strong individual. All the women in my family were. So it's a lot of inspiration from Native women, especially Diné, my Diné side. That's how you say Navajo in Navajo. But I grew up in Holbrook, Arizona, which is a border town. So there's a lot of differences when you're growing up in a border town. The reservation is close enough. You see enough of your heritage and your culture, but you're distant enough that you're kind of embedded into a different society where you're a little more outcasted. There's a little less of you around, so you don't see as much of yourself in other people or in the community around you. So that's where I was kind of raised, knowing both sides of the picture. So I think it helped me become a storyteller when I grew up to want to tell these differences between our traditional cultural life and the life that's available for us now. So, you know, the city life where we live. But Holbrook is where I graduated. Had two older brothers and a mom that was a math teacher, and dad was an engineer. My oldest brother is an engineer. My next oldest brother works for NASA as a mechanical engineer. He's sending stuff to Mars on the Mars rover. So it was pretty evident that should have been my path. So I was...
You're a clothing engineer.
Yeah. I was really embedded into math. I did calculus in high school. I was going to become a hotshot engineer. Coming into college, I had a full ride engineering scholarship coming into the U of A, so my school was paid for. But as soon as I got to the U of A, it was very quickly noticed to me that I didn't have a passion for it. I fell off very quick, and I spent a lot of time doing art. I spent a lot of time doing other things besides my schoolwork. So I found a lot of saving grace sketching in my books and making shirts on the side with stencil and spray paint and that kind of thing. I used to try to do the graffiti thing for a while, but wanted to do something a little more law-abiding. So screen printing and tea design and graphics and streetwear culture was really, it filled a gap for me. So I had you can actually go to the next page.
Actually, before I do, did any of your family do anything like that? Like your parents, grandparents?
As in like fashion?
Well, anything art related?
I mean, Native culture in general, it's like, if your family members are the ones that make their own clothing, your family members are the ones that make their own jewelry most of the time, their own pottery that's around the house, the rugs that are around the house. Both my grandmothers were weavers, so we had a lot of woven Navajo rugs and different styles and designs. And the skirt my grandma's wearing, she always made her own skirts. And when I was talking about fashion and my introduction to fashion, I always talked about my grandmother's skirts. It's always, like you can see the bottom row, they all have their skirts on. It's just kind of a staple for Navajo women. And there's like the little plain colors. They'll use something really simple if they're gonna be working or butchering or if they're gonna get blood on it. But if they're gonna go to some special occasion, my grandma would always wear like a shimmery silver or a shimmery gold skirt, and you could tell that she was playing it up. She was being nice. She was wearing something different for an occasion. And it always spoke to me that they would do this. And just how all the men are there with their collared shirts and all the jewelry they have. Like these days we wear those when we're graduating or we go to a special event, we'll wear our jewelry, but this is how our men like lived back in the day, and it's really inspiring to see. So we were artists, the same way that all Native families are artists, but
that's a big inspiration.
Yeah.
Not everybody comes from a lineage of people who hand make their own clothes and jewelry.
Yeah. Another inspiration I got is from a lot of the street art scene. I was very drawn to street artists in the way that they would make points in the public. They would speak their mind. They'd bring out themes in which people had to look at them because they were in the streets. And it's, something, I don't have to look at a billboard. I could look at a piece of art that someone put up. It was interesting to me that this kind of work was illegal. I was always intrigued by it. And they always had points and spoke different issues that I wanted to know or felt that was closer to issues that I believed in more. So things like that were like Shepherd Ferry of Obey, Banksy, a lot of the punk rock scene. Stencil art was really big for me. That's kind of how I got started with graphics and making shirts, because I would cut my own stencils and then use spray fabric paint to make my own shirts. And then just the DIY punk scene it really intrigued me, the way people do it themselves and can make stuff happen anywhere, anytime.
Great. Okay, so I know you kind of mentioned a little bit about your education, but I always want everybody to explain any kind of education that they had, because it's always different. Some people took the college route, some people didn't, and it's trade school versus state school versus, there's so many different ways to go about it. So tell us what you ended up doing.
Yeah, I have, so you can see the two I have on here at U of A, which you heard, I had a full-ride scholarship in which I lost the second semester, and then I completely failed out the year afterwards. So I only had 2.5 years at the U of A until I completely flunked out. I guess I could have put my community college in there, which would be Pima Community in Tucson. Really, I went to community college and took 5 classes. That was introduction to screen printing, introduction to graphic design, introduction to video editing, introduction to photography, and art history. So really, these all have their separate paths to a degree, but I knew what I wanted to do from that point, and that was to run my brand. So really, I did my video editing class to make a fashion video. I did my photography class because I wanted to take my own fashion photos. Graphic design because I wanted to utilize their computers instead of using mine. So I kind of like honed in and used their. I actually failed my screen printing class as well, but that's the trade I am in now. So it's really interesting to. I also have YouTube University, so that's just YouTubing. If you don't know what's going on, it was always really helpful to do. So yeah, starting at U of A and then Pima for community college, and then I was out of there.
You know, I think it was Donna Karen that dropped out of fashion school, believe it or not. There's a lot of stories just like this. Yeah. So there's a few photos of you doing your thing.
Yeah, so this is very beginning of OXDX. That's me in the garage. That'd be my brother's garage here in Phoenix. One of my friends had a press, and I learned a lot from him, how to do some screen printing. I would do these hand-painted designs on my own, usually grab products that were cheap and discounted, and I would make them new. So I would stencil them out and draw patterns on them, and then I would kind of do an auction on my Facebook. So I just tell people this is up for bid until midnight tonight. You can bid $1, you can bid $2, whatever. So sometimes I sold stuff for like 18 bucks, and then there's other times when I think the highest I had was about 140 on an item.
Like a screened
Yeah,
shirt like this?
Yeah,
Wow.
so it's just fabric ink that I would kind of scrape on. So they're all original. If I did these now, I'd probably definitely sell them for over $100. But at the time, I wasn't known. I was just trying to make a name for myself. So it was a way to pass the time for me. And
what year would you say this is?
Oh man, this is like 2010, 2011. And then a lot of these designs as well is I didn't know how to use Adobe Illustrator or stuff like that. It would be a lot of drawings, and it'd be a lot from MS Paint, so that's the free program on Microsoft. So the shirt I'm wearing is called Misrep. It's one of my first designs. That's from a drawing. The logo I used to work with is this. It's kind of a kid face with a respirator mask, and that's from an old photo. Again, of my older brother. I guess he's a part of this, but it's a little baby photo he has, and I drew over it in MS Paint, and that's where I got that design from. And then the logo underneath it is a tag I used to spray paint. So, and I wanted to show the development. So this is what I make these days. This is all from the past year or so. I do know Illustrator now, so I have learned that. I've been working in it for the past, I guess, 8 years or so.
Was that YouTube University?
It's a lot from, I guess I had a few jobs. I left college with my tail between my legs, came here in Phoenix to find a job, was a cashier for Family Dollar for 2.5 years, became an assistant manager. And actually I was doing fashion design and doing my own stuff on the side. I actually got my first fashion show with the Heard Museum. I think it was back in 2011 or 2012. I was working at Family Dollar, so I like to tell this story because it's
cool.
But I was working at Family Dollar as a cashier. Never called out. I was a little goody two-shoes. But I was celebrating that night. I wanted to just enjoy the moment, so that was the first time I called out, was after my first fashion show at the Heard Museum. I was really happy. All the models and all the people that helped me, we all went out and we celebrated. So I didn't go to work the next day, and that day the store got robbed. So they actually got held at gunpoint. They tied the cashiers, binded them with their hands and their feet. They stayed there until about 4 in the morning until they hopped to a phone and knocked it off and called 911. And then I showed up the day afterwards and was wondering where everyone was. And they were very mad at me. But I always had the story to tell that fashion kind of, being the cashier wasn't my direction. Fashion saved me from that situation. And I don't know what that situation would have done to me if I was in there. Could have been life-threatening, could have been something very different. But I don't know. It shows me that I had purpose doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And So yeah, these are the designs I'm doing these days. And then these are also the fashion pieces that I've been working on. So I've been doing collections for the past 5 years or so, and then dabbling into couture design for the past year. This is the top image. The top left would be from my 2018 line called Watching You, Watching Us.
Which was on this runway.
Yeah. And then we also had my first couture design piece. This is a dress. It's kind of tiled with my own custom fabric. That's actually sold to a museum in Texas. And then we have a lot of collaborations here. We had a blanket collaboration with a brand called 8th Generation up in Seattle, Washington. Native owned. They create their own. They're the competitors to Pendleton. Pendleton has a so-so history with Native people. It's not the greatest. So having a brand that creates their own blankets is really special. And I was glad to do a blanket with them. The middle image is a couture dress by Jamie Okuma. I designed the pattern, and she's a world-renowned beading artist, or beader. And then just other fashion show images in there as well.
Beautiful. Okay, so because I always want to hear, all the different jobs maybe you've had, and whether it's related to the industry or not. I mean, I know it says industry experience, but like the dollar store job, what are some of the other jobs that you've had and industry experience?
So yeah, I was at Family Dollar in Guadalupe for a year, and then I was the assistant manager down the way on Apache by the Food City.
Nice.
We also got robbed there, and I missed that.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You're so lucky.
So I eventually I got fired from Family Dollar, and then while I was just crying for a week and wondering what I was going to do, I would I would continue. My Family Dollar job was a part-time to me, even though I was working there 40 hours a week. I was still working there for 8 hours a day, and then I would go home. I had a bootleg version of Illustrator on a laptop that I would do designs on, and I would still do designs for clients. I would still do sales and go out and sell at different art shows, powwows, that kind of thing. And even the biggest native kind of art market you can go to is in Santa Fe. I would go there with a backpack full of shirts and just tell people I'm there and sell out of my backpack. So I was doing a lot of hustling on the side. And then I was still doing a lot of screen printing. So I get screen printing jobs and I screen print. So I remember there was one point, my cousin's here too. He would help me while I was screen printing. But there was one time when I was working Family Dollar, worked from 7 a.m. to probably 9 p.m. or 9:30. And then I got off. I had a job to print for the Loop Unified School District. They wanted 500 three-color shirts. And if you're a screen printer, that's a lot of work. So I printed 500 all night. Me and my cousin switched off, and we printed until 6 a.m., and then we met the clients on the other side of town at 6 a.m., and then we bought ourselves breakfast, and then we went to sleep. But that was the kind of hustle we were doing at the same time. So I always thought OXDX was a full-time thing. Family Dollar was just a side thing. Until I finally got fired, it was my steady income. I would still take in my screens to get burned at this screen printing shop in Tempe. So I would go to the screen printing shop every day to get new screens for printing clients or for my own screens. And pretty much the boss there knew I was coming in like weekly, knew I was getting a lot of jobs, and then asked if I wanted to just burn these myself and for him to teach me how to do it and then do it for the whole shop. To which that came a week after I was fired. It was another saving grace for me, so I started working there. And that's what I have here, the screen reclaiming, screen burning. This is a real high production shop, so we print stuff for Jack in the Box and Fiat and I don't know, there's hundreds of shirts for liquor companies and all these sort of things. And I'd be in the back cleaning screens, burning new art on them for the printers to be printing. Sometimes I'd print myself. And then it wasn't until maybe a few months they found out I was doing my own art. Of course, that was all self-taught art, and then the art director at the shop pulled me in and asked if I could do a few proofs, asked me if I could do a few designs for clients, which I did, and then I really learned probably 80% of what I know from him. So it was just on-hands training with the art director there, and he's the kind of guy that was a salary guy that he didn't take a day off for like 3 years because no one could fill in for him, and I finally gave him enough leeway so he could take a week off, and so he was really grateful that I was there and gave me a lot of pointers. And of course, I was itching to learn, so I would just soak in all the knowledge that he gave me. And of course, on my lunch, I would be screen printing. After work, I'd be screen printing. Sometimes I'd come in early and I'd be screen printing. So my days spanned from like 6 to 9 p.m. And it was just constant. So that was. I was doing all that until 2016 when I finally, I was getting museum jobs, I was getting features and calling off more from work, that eventually I just told them that I was gonna start pursuing it full time. And it was a good goodbye. He gave me a cake. Everyone was like happy to see me go, and that was, 2016 I left and then started my own full-time job. So this is the process, screen printing. This was actually here in Fabric. I don't have a lot of pictures from me actually screen printing at my old shop, just because we don't take photos of each other there.
Oh, like we do here. There's so many. If you're in a fashion building, expect a lot of photos.
So this is basically the process. It's a screen is pretty much like a mesh door. If you think about it, it's a bunch of interwoven silk, and they each create a tiny.
Silk?
Yeah, so it's actually silk.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know.
And it has a little hole, so that's what the ink gets pushed through. So really, you're coating your screen with emulsion, and then the emulsion, when it gets hit by UV light, it hardens up. So you're creating a stencil, pretty much. Everything that doesn't get hit by light, it's blocked by it, will wash out. So all you need is your design blacked out to block out the light. Everything around it will get hit by light and hardened up. And then when you wash it out, you have your stencil. And you can reuse screens forever. That's why I was in the shop all the time, just cleaning and making them brand new and then burning new images on them. So that's me very happily looking at one of my screens.
Are screens expensive?
These ones, they're a little smaller. They go about $25 a piece.
Is the paint expensive?
Ink is about, depending on what you're getting, I usually get gallons of white and black because it's really popular. Those go for like $75, $80.
Oh.
But they can print, but depending on the design, they'll print a lot.
And watching him, pulling the paint through the screen with a squeegee takes more technique than you would think. We try it. We do a fashion camp here where we bring kids in to do all the design development and stuff that the adults do, and they get to actually screen print. And the kids were amazing, but when I tried it, I just felt like I couldn't do it. Like, it really took the right pressure and getting it all even and everything. It's more intense than you think it is, just by looking at it.
It's definitely, like, being on hand with the shop taught me a lot about how to fix stuff on the press. You can get different mesh, sizes. The sizing of like the holes in the mesh. And you have ink that's different consistency. White is usually a thicker ink, black is usually really thin. So if you have a bigger mesh and you're pushing black through it, sometimes you get too much ink in there. If you get a really fine mesh and you're pushing white, sometimes you're pushing a lot and you'll tire out before you can even print, the hundreds that you have to print or something. So you can really be meticulous, and there's a lot of details to figure out, and especially with the art as well. Dividing art into different colors and that kind of stuff is kind of an art on its own.
Yeah, each screen has to have the parts of it that are for that color. So you could have 5 colors, you'd have 5 screens, right? Yeah, it's a lot.
And then this is the graphic design. This is actually when I was the artist in residence here.
Oh,
so
cool.
That's our first office here.
So what he means by that is when he was in his design in residence program, they got an office, and then he stayed after the program and moved upstairs to one of the offices up there, and then grew out of that. He's hired employees and growing his business, and then moved into a bigger office downstairs, and then has moved out of that one into another one and has expanded into multiple areas. He's growing all over this building. Yeah. All right, so now brag about yourself. Tell us about some of your accolades.
Well, I mean, on paper, there's not much I can hang on a wall, but I can talk about Native Fashion Now. Native Fashion Now was an exhibit that was touring for 2 years for a while. They added a lot of designers that were, so it was native fashion that was happening today. When you go to a museum, most of the time you'll find a lot of relic, historical type items of Native people. You'll see them in sepia and black and white. You'll see them, based in a different time, and you can't imagine them how they exist today, or imagine how they're doing art today. So I think it was a statistic, it was like more than 80% of the art in museums by Native people was of people that have passed. So Native Fashion Now created an exhibit of Native designers that were all doing current work. So this was an exhibit that had close to 90% of the people in it that were still alive and still doing work. So I was approached by them. That's a funny story too, because I wasn't expecting to hear from anybody, to hear from the Smithsonian Museum or the Peabody Essex Museum, and I actually ignored 2 of their emails. So they emailed the first time, I ignored it. They did a second time, I ignored it, and they actually had to email a friend of mine, and she had products in mind, and she sent that to them. So I have everything to thank to her for doing that, because I wouldn't have believed it or would have acted upon it.
I only had to email him like 4 times to get him to do this.
And so that exhibit started at the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem, Massachusetts. And then it moved to the Portland Museum, Portland Art Museum, and then it went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to the Philbrook Art Museum, and then finally ended at the Smithsonian NMAI Museum in New York. And then, so they actually, out of all these amazing designers, all these people I've looked up to and have just only imagined being able to meet them and see their work in person, the museum picked 2 artists to commission to create actual, like an art piece that they can throw on products and stuff to advertise the museum. So they actually picked me and Jamie Okuma out of all the amazing artists that were represented. So I was really excited. This was my first kind of big commission piece. This is called Prepped. So it's a Navajo woman. She's tying her tsiet, which is a traditional Navajo bun, kind of overlooking land. At least with Native people, we have a lot of symbology with patterns and shapes and that kind of stuff. So usually a step pattern is telling the story of maybe the mountain ranges, that kind of thing. So I have the literal step patterns meeting the mountains here. Crosses are usually big within Navajo culture. It was one of the first things ever weaved. Once we started weaving, it was just straight lines. Once we started getting fancy, we started doing crosses, and then we got fancier and fancier. And but crosses are, they point in every direction. Navajos are very detailed about each direction. She's also looking east, which is kind of a prayerful thing for Navajos. We pray to the east. The holy people are to the east. So there's a lot of symbology with east as well. And then my logo kind of is a sun. It's the brightness on the horizon. And she has oil running down her neck as well. So it's just a way to show that she's really tied to the land. She's made out of the patterns that the land is made out of as well. And she's preparing herself. She's tying herself a traditional bun to fight to protect it. So I was really pleased to be able to make a design to tell this kind of story in somewhere like New York, which also made its way to DC. And like I said, it went to Philbrook Museum. Philbrook is a museum mostly funded by the oil industry, and I don't know if they knew that when they brought me, but I was showing them these images and telling those stories to all their donors who happened to be oil tycoons.
Wow.
But it was great to be able to tell these points and being paid to do it versus being like doing it illegally, which is how I used to do it.
Wow. Is this shirt still available for people to purchase?
Yeah, so the Native Fashion now has ended for the past, I think it's been 3 years past, but the Smithsonian still carries these products both in New York and DC.
Can you buy it online or do you have to go there?
I think you can order by phone, so you can call them.
Oh.
Yeah, they're kind of old school.
Wow.
Oh, and so these are a few headline pieces. They're kind of hard to see, but the top left was kind of my first big introduction to some publicity, which was CNN posting about Native fashion using one of my images. That was actually posted on April Fool's Day as well, so it was on April 1st they posted that, so I thought everyone was joking when they told me about this article. And then underneath it was Paper Magazine's 5 Emerging Indigenous Designers to Know. Underneath that, AZ Central was talking about how I was commissioned from the Smithsonian. The Salon article directly to the right is talking about my commission with the Smithsonian. Refinery 29 is the video above. So they actually brought out like a video team from New York, a director from New York and a video team from LA. They met me here and within 2 days wanted to shoot something. So I got 4 models together. We did this really quick. Went to Sedona. We had to act like we were students because we couldn't shoot on a national park. So we had to, we said we were with ASU, but we took a bunch of the models and put them up in Sedona, and they actually did drone footage, and they told this whole story about who you're offending, what was it called? Who you're insulting when you're wearing Native-inspired things. So that's almost one of my favorite pieces, because they actually put a lot of time into it. Then the Huffington Post was probably the biggest thing I got. Title is wear these Native designs instead of Urban Outfitters. And then it just grew from there. So the ones on the left are the most recent from this past year. This is a collaboration with the Hundreds, High Snobiety posted about it. They're pretty much the Vogue of streetwear. And then, of course, all the way on the left, we had the post from Vogue. Oh, yeah? Yeah. Oh, it's my last. You guys is right. Is the Vogue post that we had in, it was either November or December. But they did the 4 Indigenous-owned streetwear brands empowering their communities and featured my work on there as well.
That's impressive. All the way to Vogue. And
then you're talking about accolades. I wanted to show the real accolades of why I do what I do. These are all the people that I've met, all the people that have supported. We make loud statements. We try to, Native people, like I said, we're shown in museums as relics. We're kind of undermined. We're pushed aside. There's not a lot that people know about Native people besides a mascot. You know, we have, just this Sunday, we have the Chiefs playing. Who are the Chiefs playing? Anybody? Yeah. 49ers. So we got 49ers, the people popular for coming into California and killing off the population there to look for gold and to move into this, brand new land which had, I don't know how many tribes that used to live there before, and then playing the Chiefs, who's another stereotype of a Native person, and Native people are just supposed to watch and celebrate this American event. So it's really hard to be a Native person and watch these things happen, to watch people undermine you and put you in a caricature and think you're being taken seriously. So that's what Native people want. We want to be taken seriously. A few years ago, the Cubs played the Indians. So you can see from the top, one of my shirts was wearing during a protest. On your middle right is students from San Diego State University, all pitching in to buy my Futures Indigenous shirts. We did a printing workshop at Stanford University, that's the bottom right. The one right next to it is actually from the Standing Rock camp up in North Dakota. There's a lot of shirts that were posted there. And then, of course, Columbus Day is big with us. I always want to make a point that Columbus was a murderer and someone that committed genocide and brought nothing but bad things to Native people. And it's weird that we have a day to celebrate it. So Native Americans Discovered Columbus was a shirt I made, probably the second or third shirt I ever made. And it has been the most popular since, every year. So we've kind of made a new holiday with it, and now there actually is a new holiday being made with it. So Indigenous Peoples Day is slowly taking over and replacing Columbus Day, which I think is real progress. And of course, me and my partner, Ali. Ali is the one in the back. And Ali is the newest but the strongest addition to the team. OXDX has always been graphic design, t-shirts. But with Ali's help, we are expanding into cut and sew, dyeing processes. We're really trying to become the brand that I've imagined since I was very young starting this. So all these people I want to thank, and it's great to be able to do this and really show the impact within the communities.
And Ali's by the rack that he has tonight so that you could buy a piece of his art tonight. And with cultural appropriation, is it okay for somebody that's not Native American to buy your product?
Yeah, I mean that's a common question. It's very okay if you're looking, if you like what you're looking at as far as Native designs, seek out Native artists because there's tons of them out there, and we want you to buy from us versus Urban Outfitters making something that's a knockoff, or everything else that's manufactured at other places. There's real, actual traditional art still being made, and that goes into our community. So a dollar going to us is most likely going to stay within the Native community and help us grow, because we do need it. The reservation is in need of new businesses. Businesses is a new kind of concept with Native people. We're still on our come up as far as trying to create these structures where we can help other businesses. And I think so if I'm looking for people that I'm influenced by, at least within another Native designer, you can name only a few on your hand that are really doing it, that are really still sticking with it, because a lot of stuff is really tough. So we're kind of paving our own way these days to all the Native designers now. Lauren's been doing a great job, winning Couture Fashion Designer of the Year for Phoenix Fashion Week, and it's great to see that kind of work progressing, because there's beautiful Native art. It's crazy how beautiful it is, but it's something that we're not accustomed to business. We're not accustomed to selling our wares or anything. It's always been made with family intentions or for trade intentions, or just doing something for what you need versus capitalism. So it's a very new concept for Native people to try to adopt this. And it's tough as me as a brand to try to adopt it as well, because again, we're very based in anarchism. We're very based in DIY. We're trying to show that you can be your own person. I'm definitely trying to show that the government doesn't look out for Native people, or that the system isn't made for Native people. But I have to fit into this system to make the voice and to make the impact that I want to make. So it's really tough on me to try to figure out how to make that work. But I think there's nothing else I want to do. There's nothing else I can do. So I'll be working at this for forever.
And we're so happy you're working at this here. We're so proud to have you in this building, and the fact that you were one of our first Designer Resident Scholarship winners, and you've stayed here and you continue to run your business out of here makes us so proud. So our last question is always, why is fabric important?
So at the time I applied to the residency, I was working out of my brother's house. I was sleeping on his couch. I think I was there for about 2 years, maybe longer. I was working off his kitchen table. Every time we had to have dinner, we'd clear off my business to have dinner. It was really tough to stay organized. So my friend actually did a tour with fabric, said you should check it out. You should apply. I was really busy. I actually didn't have that much. I don't have a lot of faith in what I do most of the time. I'm gaining more confidence the more I do stuff, but she had the more confidence than I did. I was like, if you handle the video, because I was meeting 2 deadlines, and I was like, if we're gonna do a video, you need to handle most of it. And she did. She set it up. She's like, I'm just gonna ask you questions. Come sit down. And we did a video. We edited it. I think we turned it in at 11:59 on the due date. And actually got the confirmation back that we got it, and it was really exciting because I didn't have to be on the kitchen table anymore. So we had the free space for 6 months, and I already had 2 employees actually. So we moved down into where the offices were, and it was cute because we could just back our seats up and turn around, and we'd have our meetings. We were all just kind of squished into this office. So that's why we kept moving. We knew right away once we went through all the classes and all the resources that we had here, we were motivated to stay here. We wanted to stay here. The vibe here was it was kind of what I need. I'm more to myself. When I'm back at my brother's place and I'm just doing work, I'd probably work all night and sleep all day, and I wouldn't talk to anybody for days at a time. But here, it's nice to have these interactions with people, and you can talk again to like-minded people.
And every tour, we open up his door, we're like, and this is Jared.
So it's great to see that much creativity that's still happening within our communities. So yeah, I moved to the office upstairs, and then we moved to an office downstairs after that, and then we're at our fourth office now, which is a lot bigger and a lot better. So we're soon to. We had I had my own press, so that was a big thing when I first started. I bought my own press, and it was an introductory level thing. We're upgrading now, so we're very soon, probably within a month or so, we'll have a brand new kind of a commercial level press back here in Fabric, and then we'll be, pumping out designs for clients, shirts for people. That'll be another set of our business that we want to offer to everybody here as well.
Yeah, so if you need t-shirts with your logo on it, you can come here and he can do that for you. When will that be?
It might be a little bit, but we're working by end of March, maybe April.
Oh, that's not bad.
To have our own press here.
We'll share it in the newsletter when it happens, so you know that it's here. Well, I just want to thank you again. I know that it's always uncomfortable to get up and tell your story, so thanks for sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I loved it. It was such an amazing journey. And obviously, fashion is your angel, because that's why you were there in that store that day. That's amazing. Let's give them all a big round of applause.